welcome to Run It Back on the Raptors Republic Network. I'm your host, Zulfi here, joined by Kyle Ramnarine and Coty Wiles, and I'm glad to be back, glad to be joining these two, and I'm thankful that they were able to take over last week. And I think, guys, the Raptors' woes have been a little tough to end the season. That's why we wanted all three of us on together to kind of talk things through and have some more fun about it. There's a lot to go over, some good, a lot of bad, unfortunately. But with that being said, let's run it back. All right, let's recap the schedule since we last spoke. And to be honest, friends, we're not going to dive into every single game because the results are kind of just starting to blur together. The Raptors are outmatched right now. That's the reality of it. The lineups just can't keep up for the most part due to their injuries and just a lack of talent. There's a couple spirited efforts in there from time to time, but ultimately they're still ending the same. In the last 2 weeks since we spoke, the Raptors have played 5 games, taking on the Kings, Thunder, Wizards, Nets, and Knicks, and the Dinos took L in all 5 contests. Their losing streak is up to 12, the longest consecutive losing streak the Raptors have had since the 2010-2011 season. And their last loss to the Knicks, 44-point blowout. That is the largest home loss in franchise history, beating the record of 41 that was set about 3 weeks ago to the Pelicans. So it hasn't been that long. The Raptors are 23-50 now on the season, to remain 12th in the Eastern Conference. So guys, it's no secret here. The Raptors are crawling to the finish line because of the injuries, the off-court situations, and also just the lack of clear talent. Coty, I do want to start with you. Do you think the Raptors can prove anything to end the season here? Is there anything left to be said at this point?
I mean, I think we've seen both. I've seen enough. I would like, if I think you could kind of transition this into like the keep/convey debate as well, because everything's just kind of, it's going to be what it's going to be. I'd rather, hopefully RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly can come back and just put together some good games, because I don't want to see this losing streak get any longer. It's the 12 games is up to 3rd longest in franchise history. A loss against the Sixers tonight would tie them for 2nd worst all time. They still got a ways to go to break the record. 17 games happened in 1998. But, I mean, honestly, just better play. And if you were to be a silver lining, it would be all the young guys getting more reps and reps. So if they can all start to look good, I'm sure we'll talk about Grady Dick, who is starting to really come into his own now. So just positive play, no matter if it's a win or a loss.
Hey, Kyle, are you in the same boat? Is it just positive play? Is there anything else they can prove to you? Are you just ready to put a bow on this thing, call it a cursed season, and move on?
I'm ready to wrap this up and look forward to the future, bro. I have a little bit of a pessimistic view of this. For me, right now, I just want to see guys like Grady Dick, Kobe Simmons, Javon Freeman kind of get their time on like the main roster, get some minutes. That's what the only thing I really want to see at this point. I don't know if we should even bring back RJ and quickly just kind of let them rest. RJ's going through a lot, quickly to get them ready for the next season and just let these young guys kind of develop. Grady's shown his flashes of greatness, getting 23 points and going off here and there. Javon is starting to grow into his own a little bit. So for me, at least, I just kind of give these guys the green light, let the season play out. If we get a losing streak, just break the franchise record. Why not? Go for history.
Yeah, if you want to see though the young guys playing the two-way guys in there, trust me, you're getting a lot of that to end the season. We're gonna keep seeing plenty of that. But yeah, I think you guys both make good points. It's one of those things where like the situation is what it is at hand. You can't really fight it at this point. I don't think any coaching or any scheming can make up for kind of just a lack of talent they're faced with. And the truth is they are basically putting out a G League team out there for 99% of these games, because they have a ton of two-way guys out there. They have their 10-day contracts out there, and they have like really young rookie guys. They only have like 1 or 2 vets playing every night at this point. So it's a bit of tough sledding. In terms of the RJ and Emmanuel quickly thing, I think I kind of side with both of you in the sense that like if they want to take their time with it, I think everyone's comfortable saying like you guys decide how you want to end off the season. If you want to come back, great. If you don't, by all means, take your time, deal with the process how you want to deal with it. Obviously, it's a very tough personal situation for both of them. But then if they want to come back, it would be nice to kind of see them get those reps to end the season, finish off on a strong note, and kind of carry that momentum into next year. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide. I think I can say for all of us, we're just glad to see them kind of around the team again. We need some kind of positivity to lean on, and I think that doesn't offer it. Something I wanted to kind of go off of that is that a big topic of conversation, like you mentioned, Coty, the keep versus convey debate has happened. We've talked about that quite a bit. But something that I see lately, especially because it's becoming more of a reality for the Raptors to potentially keep this pick with the way they're going in the standings. And I've seen people lean towards like they should probably go for a guard But reason being, the backup point guard situation is very unclear right now. They honestly don't really have one. And then there's also the idea of the two guard spot. You have a Jordan Nwora who's unrestricted free agent. They're starting two guard, Gary Trent Jr., a very polarizing person in Raptors land right now. Some people love the way he's playing lately. Some people think it's just him chucking shots on a really bad team. And he's an unrestricted free agent. Who knows what his market is going to be like this offseason. So there's the idea of maybe pairing somebody with Emmanuel Quickley and Grady Dick and having to be part of that trio of guards. But then there's also the big spot that like people want a more vertical big to play on this team. Someone who can be a lob threat, someone be a bit more athletic than maybe a Jakob Poeltl and a Kalinic, both of which aren't young anymore. So who knows what the future of the big spot is. And then there's even this idea of like get a 3-and-D wing, a defensive stopper. The name Stephon Castle comes up a lot when it comes to that conversation. And I think that's something interesting too, because this defense is really bad right now. And even with all the other guys back in Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Manny Quickley, I don't think the defense really has that stopper yet. That's a bit of what they hope Ochai Agbaji could eventually turn into. So there's all these like sides of where you could go. So I want to ask you guys, and I'll start with you, Kyle. What do you want to prioritize with the highest pick the Raptors do end up with? It could be in that 1 to 6 range with that top one, or it could be a middle lottery with that like 15 to 17 from the Pacers. What do you want them to go after first?
Honestly, for me, I've been thinking about it. The one thing the Raptors need is an upgrade at the center position right now. I think that's what we need the most. Someone who might be able to stretch the floor. Right now, we have Jakob Poeltl. He's great, but at points, it seems like he's not really fitting with the system right now. And I know there is a good big coming up in this draft. It's almost like we had a chance at a generational big last year, but that is what it is. But I think right now that they should prioritize getting a big, someone who can grow along with the young core of Emmanuel Quickley, of RJ Barrett, of Scotty Barnes, and kind of almost grow into that OKC kind of for what they have now. Because right now, for me at least, I feel like Scotty can grow into a good defensive wing. Same with RJ Barrett, the shooting guard spot. I feel like they can be better defenders the more they play and the more experience they get. So right now, I don't know about you guys. For me, I think they should prioritize an upgrade at the center position.
Cody, are you with Kyle, or do you have a different thought on this one?
It's so tough, right? Because I think Zulfi, I think you laid it out really well in the sense that they need to target really, I think they need, if they do end up getting all 3 picks, I think they need a 3-and-D guard, a 3-and-D bigger wing, and then a rim running big who can catch lobs and protect the rim. It's tough to know, how the board's going to fall if the Raptors do end up with like the 5th, 6th overall pick. But I think they need to address one of those 3 things. If they do end up with the 6th best odds at the end of the season, they'll have a 45.8% chance of keeping the pick. So we could just be talking about some top guys at the draft, and it just doesn't even happen. But they need to address those 3 type of archetypes. I love the 2 UConn kids, Stephon Castle and Donovan Clingan. If one of those guys could end up on the Toronto Raptors, I think that would be a home run pick. I don't know. It seems like 17. I think it's around 16, 17, the Pacers pick. That seems too late for both of them. If they get 6, that seems a bit too early for them. So we'll see. But I feel like both those guys really would fit in well with the Raptors because they just need role players, right? Like we have the main Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes. That's kind of the orbit of this team. So you just need players to fit around them. And I think those 2, just for some examples, would fit really nicely.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that they probably need to try to address all 3 of these in some regard with this draft, or at least get some rookies in that kind of fit those spots and see which ones stick. Maybe you don't hit a home run with all 3. Normally you don't. That's what the draft is. But they clearly have multiple needs they need to try to address, whether that's through free agency, whether that's through the draft. It'll be interesting to see how to go about that. In terms of like what I think is personal preference, I think going with any of these options with their highest pick probably makes sense, again, given their needs. But my preference would be trying to get that 3-and-D guard or a bit of a taller point guard than what we have traditionally. For the last couple of seasons, the Raptors have been pretty undersized at that point guard spot. And it hasn't been bad necessarily. Kyle Lowry's the greatest Raptor of all time, and that's okay. But he was like a 6-footer. You have Fred VanVleet, who's listed, I think, as 6 feet, but I think we all know he's probably like more like 5'11". And then you have Emmanuel Quickley as well, who's not the tallest point guard. And it's been fine. They're very dynamic point guards, but having that kind of 3-and-D stopper role, a bigger guard, I think of a guy like, if he falls like later around 17, maybe an Isaiah Coley, or just like someone with a bit of size who can play make, be a bit of a gritty guy defensively. And I think that's going to add versatility to this team when you have those lineups where you want to add somebody in who can kind of change things up a little bit at that playmaker spot and initiator. So I think if just preference-wise, I would like to see the Raptors with a bit more size at the guard position. Because Grady Dick might be able to offer that in the future, but he still has to figure it out defensively. We don't know where he's going to fit with this team. Obviously, you have RJ Barrett there on the guard rotation as well, who's not bad. But just having that like fourth option, that like young, gritty guard that can come in and just focus on defense for more than anything, and then grow in that initiator role. I think that would be fun to see. That's where my preference lies. But like you said, Cody, they got to address all of these at some point. That's where it's going to come down to. So what I want to go from there is there's something that I think the three of us are perfect to talk about, and that is the 905. I know we love talking about Raptors 905 since we all cover the beat pretty extensively. And for those of you that are unaware, the 905 season has come to an end. Very similarly to the Raptors, it wasn't the most successful year. They finished with a 13-21 record and 14th place in the Eastern Conference. And honestly, very similar to the Raptors. Injuries and roster turnovers really impacted them. But like I said, we got to cover the beat quite extensively for our art, so it was a lot of fun to see each of us around, kind of get reps and learn everything. But Cody, I'm going to start with you. What did you make of this 905 season?
Oh boy, it was a mixed bag for sure. Regular season they were 13-21. Showcase they were 4-12. So altogether 17-33. Put together better games towards the end. I feel like once the reset happened, things kind of got in place a little bit. There weren't so many injuries. The showcase was a mess. I mean, yeah, a lot of injuries this team had. Like, just for anyone who didn't really follow the 905, picture what the Raptors are going through right now. That's exactly what was happening with the 905. You know, they didn't really win a lot, but it depends what your goal is. Is the goal to really win games at the G League level or to develop guys? And they didn't really win games, but they developed guys. Credit to Eric Khoury and that coaching staff. Just look at the amount of guys who have gotten time with the big club. Javon Freeman Liberty is now on a standard deal. Mo Gay, Kobe Simmons is now up. Marquise Noel actually did play a game with the Raptors, and if he wasn't hurt, I'm sure he would have been playing games here as well. Even I could throw Jonte Porter in there, maybe. Yeah. He technically came through the 905. So, and even players who didn't get called up, like Omari Moore is someone I really love, and who I think if he continues to stick around with the 905 could maybe turn into something. But you know, they didn't really win a lot, but they did see guys develop and eventually make their dreams come true in the NBA.
Yeah, the 905 or any G League team is an interesting place. And I did that feature recently on Matt Gray for Sportsnet. And talking to him, I got to ask him this question that I've wanted to ask a G League coach for the longest time. It was like, how is the dynamic for you? Because it's weird. If you're doing your job really well at the G League level, you're losing your talent. Your best guys are leaving you. And that's exactly what happened to this 905 team. And that clearly impacted the record. Again, when Jonte Porter showed up on this team, and I know he has a separate situation going on, and that's off the court, and that's been talked about extensively, but on the court, this team was really energized by that addition of Jonte Porter and what he added. He could space the floor really well. He was still physical inside. We know what kind of touch he has. We've seen it with the big club as well. And I remember Eric Khoury coming out of that break and starting the season after the showcase. He said with Jonte on this team, they feel like they can kind of like make a real run here. That's where they were at one point. But then again, a guy like Jonte, they kind of unlocked that talent a little bit with the very few games he had with the 905, and he made sense in the big club with their injuries. Even like a guy like Javon Freeman Liberty, he's gotten his opportunity. Javon was like running the show down with the 905 for much of the season, especially with the reps that he was getting. Marquise Noel was their starting point guard and a major facilitator, and then he's out for 21 games. So those injuries made it really difficult. But like you said, Cody, I think you hit it on the nail. Where like, it's what do you want to see out of a developmental team or a G League team for a farm system? If it's wins, well, then that's going to be a mixed bag, and maybe you're disappointed with the season with the 905. But if it's development, like you kind of checked a lot of boxes. Grady Dick was down here for like 2 weeks, and look what happened to him and how did he turn things around. Javon Freeman Liberty, like you said, converted to a standard contract. You had Justice Winslow, Mo G, Kobe Simmons, all get 10 days. Jemias Ramsey wasn't really with the 905. He was just a G League guy, and then he got his 10-day, even DJ Carden. But the system here, the G League technically offered 5 players to get 10-day contracts with the Raptors, and then you had all their two-way players. Obviously, they've changed and converted differently. All their two-way guys have gotten on the court for NBA minutes this season. So if you're looking at it developmentally, I think the 905 season did what it was supposed to do, and in an ironic way, kind of negatively impacted them. But I think that's what made it super interesting. That's what farm teams are. But Kyle, what did you make of this season? Because again, you were there just as much as us. What did you learn from it? Was there anything that you wanted to point out from what happened this season?
It's kind of like you guys both again hit the nail right on the head with me. For me, at least, I view the G League as kind of a showcase for players. Develop their talents, get to the big leagues, and like they do want to make a run. But here is where we sent Grady Dick down there to get his shots up, get minutes, get experience, and he came back even better. And then we have guys like Javon Freeman, everybody you guys just talked about too is what exactly I want to say as well. Like for me, at least, I view this season as a success because we had so many guys come up to the main roster and we saw so many guys show up their talents too. As soon as I saw Kobe Simmons in one game, he dropped like 27 or 30. I was like, this guy can be someone big for the Raptors. And as soon as he got his call up, I was really happy for him because a lot of these guys are very talented and just needed somewhere to showcase their talent. So for me, you guys took the words right out of my mouth. I view the season as a success simply because of how many of those talents got their chance at the big leagues.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think a fun thing that I wanted to do to kind of wrap up this 905 conversation for the people that are interested is that, again, each of us has been there for different games, for different performances, for some ups, some downs. And I wanted to ask you, I'm going to give you the floor here, kind of an elevator pitch style. Tell the people about someone from the 905 that you want to be on everyone's radar moving forward and that you just want to show some love to. Because these guys don't get a lot of attention necessarily in the G League, and especially if people who just focus on the big club. Who's the guy that you just want more people to know about, like at least going to next season or whatever it is?
For me, for me at least, I think I would do Marquise Noel. He came back from injury. Recently had his final little 2 games right there. But when I went to watch that season finale, this past Friday, I believe, the way Marquise can command that floor as the point guard and how he just kind of takes over in the first 4 minutes of that game, he had 5 assists already. He was finding open guys on the cuts. Every play he was finding an open man. He was making offense. And when he went to sit, because he was on a little bit of a minutes restriction because of that injury, but when he went to sit, the offense took a noticeable dip. It was slower. The tempo was slower. They weren't scoring as much. So even though a lot of people underestimate his size, I feel like Marquise has a lot to bring to the NBA, at least too, not even just the G League. He's someone that can really command an offense, and his presence out there was something I was just kind of taken back by. I was like, okay, I haven't really kind of felt this before by a point guard. He sees everything, and his ability to play make is elite.
Yeah, he's one of I would say he's one of the best passers in the G League, especially when he was out there. He was tied for 3rd in assists in the G League before his injury, and he's just a crazy, efficient playmaker. But I think what he doesn't get enough credit for is defensively, he's a dog.
Oh yeah.
He will dip his hips and get down and just play physical with anyone. I've seen him strip so many 6'8", 6'10" guys. He has no fear guarding them. And sometimes he gets hunted, quite honestly, for his size. But then he tries to, I don't think that ends up being a negative situation for the 905 as often as people might think. And maybe at the NBA level, it's different because obviously they're bigger, more physical, more athletic for the most part. But I still think defensively, Marquise really puts in an effort that is very underrated in terms of what he has to offer. Coty, who do you want to show love for?
Yeah, I already kind of brought him up. Give me some Amari Moore hype, guy. Honestly though, a bit of a slower start to the year, but once the injuries kind of happened, he was out for a majority of the showcase as well, but I believe it was a wrist or a hand fracture, something along that degree. But during the regular season, he was one of the best defenders on this team, which had a lot of great defenders. He 6'10" wingspan, he's 6'6", 195. Honestly, a really rough kind of comp for him is Ochai Agbaji. They both kind of are defensive first guys who are still working on the 3-point shot. I mean, Amour did shoot 31% from 3 on nearly 3 attempts per game. So there's a good baseline. He's only 23. And just some other numbers for him, 9.5 points and nearly 4 rebounds and 4 assists. So really good rookie year for Amari Moore. If he really fits that 3-and-D model, if the 3-point shot can continue to come along, then I feel like he can really carve out a niche for him in the NBA. Just think like Agbaji, to be honest. It's not a lot of putting the ball on the deck, but really active defensively, hands everywhere. He's always poking balls free or leaping up to get a block. So I feel like he's somebody who's kind of gone underrated. He started some games later in the year as well. So I like Amari Moore. If they could keep him around, then I'd be happy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know, Cody, we were at a game together and we were talking about it, and it was really fun just watching you just mention how active his hands are and how he's just
Like
like
every
working
play,
on the
that's
defensive
probably
end.
annoying you. It's like every play.
No, it was fun because like literally every play that had happened, but he kept doing it. That's the thing. Like defensively, he like you said, Ochai type of vibe. He's just so active. He's so heady with that kind of stuff. And then on offense, you really did see him grow into more of that guard facilitator role. In the last game I was there, I even asked him about it. Like you really had to take that on with Marquise out, and then Jafon has to leave the team, and then Kobe Simmons is even gone, and then it really just does fall on Omari for a lot of that. And you just see him kind of get more comfortable with it. That second last game I was at, he had like a 14-point quarter, which is just kind of like a testament to the amount of work he's put in and the role that he's going into offensively. So I'm with you. I would actually really love to see him back, and I would really love to kind of see him have that like top, not maybe not top spot, but really be one of those like facilitators and be like at least a 1A option out there, because I think he does a really good job at it, and he's shown that throughout the season. Somebody I wanted to show love for was the Raptors 905's draft pick coming into the season. That was Miles Burns. His first year as a pro. To me, he is a guy that is just instant, constant energy. He's just always trying. He's a gym rat. He's always there. He always wants to be around the ball. And the effort level is always at 110%. And sometimes that is to his detriment a little bit, but that's what being inexperienced is. He has to figure out how to harness it. There's times where he doesn't play within scheme, or he kind of like breaks the flow of the offense a little bit. But he's trying to do it he's trying to be positive with it. He's trying to create energy. He's trying to wreak havoc. And similar to like Marquise at times, like he will come in and just like impact the game immediately, diving for a loose ball, getting a big rebound, and just trying to make things happen. And he needs to just harness that at a more consistent rate. But like you need to have guys who care. You need to have guys who are just always trying. And I've never seen this guy give up on a play. No matter how much the team is losing by, no matter what the score is, he is always putting in effort. They could be down by 20 and he's out there fighting for every single loose ball. Like that's just who Miles Burns is. And I think he deserves love for that. And I think he has a long way to go to grow into his role in professional basketball. But I think he's a guy that this team absolutely should foster and keep developing with, because once he does harness that, like I think sky's the limit for him. Genuinely, he's a great athlete. His three-point shot is a work in progress, but he can knock it down when he needs to. And then when he's towards the rim, he just has an explosiveness to his game, and he's getting better at finishing around there. So I think he has the perfect tools to be a 3-and-D type of guy that can even be a bit more creative than that in the professional ranks. So I want to see Miles Burns kind of continue to get the development with that team. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up for 905 talk, the Raptors talk that we had. There's, again, a lot went on. Not all of it was super positive, but clearly we were able to come up with some silver linings in this conversation and see what we can look forward to next season. But with that being said, I think we're going to move it on to the power rankings now.
All right, so for this week's power rankings, again, reminder, it is week by week, and we're doing, because since we missed about the last 2 weeks, we're going to factor all those L's in, all these performances. I want to rip my eyes out because of how many DMPs and roster changes we got, but this is what I got for this week. Number 1, Gary Trent Jr. Number 2, Kelly Olynyk. Number 3, Grady Dick. Number 4, Bruce Brown. 5, Jordan Nwora. Number 6, we got our boy Ochai. Number 7, Javon Freeman Liberty. Number 8, Garrett Temple. 9, Kobe Simmons. 10, Jalen McDaniels. 11, we got our boy Mo G. 12, Emmanuel Quickly. 13, Scotty Barnes. And 14, RJ Barrett. All right, boys, let me know what y'all think.
Well, let's start right at the top. Gary Trent Jr., why not? With him and Grady Dick have really been one of the positive bright spots. If you were to pinpoint any, Gary Trent continuously showing that he can really be, maybe not a number one option, but just like be a go-to scorer. 21 points, 3 assists, 3.5 rebounds this week, or these last 2 weeks, sorry. And he's just really taken on a larger role, and I like it. He's a pending UFA, so it's going to be interesting to see like what the Raptors do with him. Doesn't really fit Darko ball. It doesn't really pass the ball around, even though this past week he has been. His assist totals have been up there, but it's going to be interesting. But he's really making his mark. He's been way better defensively as well. So he's really stepping into this role and really showing the Raptors like, hey, if you want to keep me around, he might actually be getting a pay bump off his play. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, his offseason situation is going to be very interesting because, like, the market's going to be weird. There's not many players, like, of note entering this market. Like, a guy like Malik Monk might be one of the biggest paydays of this offseason, which you wouldn't think in most free agencies. So it'll be interesting to see where Gary's market falls in that and what his value is going to be at, and do the Raptors want to keep him along? Because, like, it's maybe long forgotten now, but he had a very, very rough start to the season. Like, he was not playing well at all. People were questioning his role in the starting lineup. He then eventually got moved to the bench for a bit. That one back and forth. He dealt with plantar fasciitis for a while, and that impacted something, who knows. But like lately, he's obviously, like you guys said, he's been really turning it up. And I'm one of those people that doesn't think it's just because he's playing on this really depleted roster and he's getting a couple more shots up a game. His like shooting numbers haven't significantly increased. I think maybe he gets 3 to 5 shots a game more, which again is notable, but I don't think it's enough to kind of just account for all that juice. And you mentioned it, Coty, as well. Lately, his assist numbers are going up. He really is starting to learn to play, make and facilitate a bit more. And then on the defensive end, I think he's also gotten a lot better. He's wreaking a bit more havoc. He's trying to stay in front of players a bit more. So I think the fact that he's putting an effort into those things and not just chucking up shots, to me, that speaks to a guy that isn't just trying to get his numbers up and stat pad so he can get a contract in the offseason. He's not just doing it for the sake of doing it and trying to build his own offense. The fact that he's adding those other elements, I think he's genuinely trying to do the best he can and take on a leadership role with this team. So I'm okay with this one, and I think Kyle nailed it putting him at 1.
Yeah, he needs a secondary skill, right? Like to really cement himself as a starter in the league. Like we all know he can rip it from 3, and he does have some self-creation, to be fair, but maybe if it doesn't come in the playmaking, it can really come defensively. We've seen flashes of just great defensive on-ball play from him, and he's really taking the main ball handler assignment now. And even when like someone like RJ Barrett was out, like he was getting the main defensive assignment over Emmanuel quickly. So I think they believe in him. I think he has the tools to do it. It's just a matter if he can do it consistently.
Yeah, that's why I put him up there. Like he had to, like for this stretch with all the injuries, he had to kind of be the Raptors' best player. There was no way around it. He was kind of the most experienced in a way as well, and I think he kind of stepped up to it too. Like he wasn't putting up like 40-point games, but I feel like he was done the most given the cards he was dealt. He did put on good performances. He wasn't choking. He wasn't, and he greatly improved from the beginning of the season. A lot of people were calling him to be traded to get rid of this guy, but the Raptors fans were coming down on his head, and he really did step up his level of play. So it's just happy for me to see this guy rise through the ranks right now and finally make that #1 spot on the power rankings.
Bro, you were coming down on his head. Don't
think
I forgot that F you gave him, and everyone roasted you in the quick react. Like, trust me,
he deserved that though. I'll stand on that.
I'm just saying, if you're talking about people coming down on him, you were one of those people.
I was
putting that out there.
I'm the people.
Yeah, you are the people. Hey man, like he's the only 20-point scorer for the Raptors throughout their last week or 2 of basketball. Like really, like say what you want about him, and he's getting up your shot, but they need somebody to score the ball, and he's one of the best scorers. Honestly, he's the best scorer they have on their team currently right now. So it'll be interesting to see. Kyle, who do you want to talk about next?
Let me hear your thoughts on Kobe Simmons. Our boy from the G League. He did have a few minutes played, and he looked good in those minutes he did get for the team. So, what do y'all think? Should he get more minutes to showcase more of his talents, or what do you think? You guys think of Kobe Simmons right now?
Yeah, it's been he's only played 2 games, right? So it's been a mixed bag, and obviously they're trying to get a really good look at him at this level. But I mean, he's 4.5 points. He hasn't really shot the 3 ball too well, but he's doing a lot of the little things that I think we all saw with the 905. He's quick. Even when you watch him in person, he's really quick, and I think he's a super smart player. And when the 905 first acquired him, you could tell. Someone might have mentioned it already in this podcast. Like there's a real energizer, and he really kept things steady for the 905 when there was a lot of injuries. And I think it was more of a thank you 10-day contract for Kobe. I think he'll get a second one as well if I had to guess. But you know what? He's going to continue to get some more minutes. He's going to be battling with Juwan Freeman-Liberty. Like who knows what happens next year. Freeman-Liberty's contract is unguaranteed, so maybe Kobe Simmons can really showcase some stuff and earn a spot for next year, because that's what it is, right? For this year, everybody's just playing for not even just for the Raptors, but showcasing their talents for the 29 other NBA teams as well, putting stuff on film. So I think he's going to continue to do his thing, honestly.
Yeah, I think you said it well, Coty. Like, it's steady, right? Like, he's just a steady performer. He's consistent for the most part. And for him, it usually does stem from the defensive end. He's always trying on that end. He cares about playing defense, which clearly is a very important thing for Darko. A lot of these younger two-way guys are like end of bench guys. Darko has mentioned their recipe to get opportunity in minutes is by being good on the defensive end, and the offensive role will grow with time. Again, he doesn't offer too much offensively right now in this team, in this system, But I think he's kind of, like you said, the 3-point shot, he's taking good looks, but I'm with you. I think he's speedy, and I think he has a really nice burst and first step. I think it was that first game where he on a sideline inbounds, but he came just curled off the ball and got in for an open layup. And I think stuff like that is super cool to see, especially with a guy like him. He's not super young. I believe he's 25, 26. So that does factor into it a little bit. But I think a thank you 10-day is still something for him to showcase something, at least, like you said, for the Raptors or other teams. And I think it's going to at least provide him another opportunity to continue grinding and get into things. Kyle, I want to circle back on a player. I know we went down to Kobe Simmons, but I need to ask you, what did you see from Bruce Brown in the last couple of weeks to put him at 4? Feels quite high.
I was thinking, like, I was looking at that too, if I should move back, because there's so much movement. He did have flashes where, like, he did put up, like, decent game. It was great, but there's so many DMPs. I was honestly thinking either putting not Jordan Nwora, Ochai, or JFL above him, honestly, because JFL did give us some good minutes, but it's just so hard with everything after 3, just organizing right there. It's because we had that one game 2 against the Nets where nobody did anything. And I was looking at this and I was like, damn, bro, this is just like picking a needle from a haystack. So right now it's just like Bruce Brown is doing his thing out there, but that's where I had to put him, because he was solid. He was solid enough for me, at least, for 4th.
Yeah, I mean,
nah, bro, I'm just going to say no. Cody, go ahead. I'll talk after. Cody, go ahead.
He's just the type of player that is much better on a contender, right? I mean, I think you can kind of tell even pre-trade deadline, like, he didn't want to be here, or he kind of expecting to be moved. And it seemed like right after the trade deadline, he is playing a bit more comfortable, but this is just an outsider's point of view. It doesn't really seem like he is kind of really putting in the effort and doesn't really want to be here, so to speak. Like, I just think he's trying to not get hurt for next year. I think there's like literally a 0% chance he's on this team start next season. I would be surprised if the Raptors can't find a trade suitor for him. Obviously, he has a team option, which the Raptors will most likely pick up just to trade him. But yeah, man, 8.5 points, 3 assists and rebounds this past week. I mean, it is what it is. Like, he's here for now. I mean, honestly, it's nice to at least have like an NBA caliber player on the floor at this point. So, but he's just the type of guy who's better on a contender with better players around him, instead of being one of the focal points on a bad team.
Yeah, see, the practical answer, you are right, Cody. Like, that's it. He just needs to be around talented players for him to really gel. Like, think about where his other 2 stops were, where he looked really good. He was playing with Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, MPJ, those guys. And then he was playing with Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving in some regard with the Brooklyn Nets. Like, those are obviously all-world talents for the most part. And I think he was able to have a simplified role around that, and that's different here. Like, with the Raptors, I just, like, he gives you like 20 minutes of boneheadedness and 10 minutes of like a really solid play. But even in those 10 minutes, he's not fitting the role that he's kind of been like thrust upon in this being a facilitator. Like you said, 3.5 assists. He's supposed to be this backup point guard type of initiator, and he's not really doing that. His best minutes are when he's just kind of cutting off ball, cleaning stuff under the glass, and kind of like keeping it really simple. And that just, I don't see a role for that on this team in any capacity, like you said, in moving forward. And it's just like, the way I'm gonna put it, he just seems like a bit of a smarter Jalen McDaniels right now. And that's not saying a lot, to be quite honest. And Darko, I have so much faith in you, but for the love of God, never have a lineup where these 2 guys are on the floor together again. That was insane to see, and it didn't really work well. So I don't know, like, I haven't really seen much from Bruce Brown for me to be like, this is positive. He is an NBA guy, obviously, but with anything that's going on here, I don't see anything to warrant him being even in the top 5 on this list. If I had to put anyone higher, hell, give me Garrett Temple. He played a couple games, hit a couple threes, and he's like a 37-year-old veteran who's actually going out there and providing, contributing minutes and meaningful minutes in games. And like, he's a guy who's supposed to just be on the bench wearing stylish suits and then coming in and providing that veteran leadership. But he's going out there like the other veteran guys have, like a Thad Young before, and just like playing positive. And I think that's important, and that's worth valuing. Like, Garrett Temple has done everything this team has asked of him and then some. So I would honestly reward him, and I think he's actually played relatively well for his couple minutes throughout the last couple games.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you guys too, like,
that's where it's at now. Garrett Temple. Man.
That's where I would. Do we not agree that we think Garrett Temple in his like 20 minutes has looked better than Bruce Brown the last couple of games?
You know what? You're right. You're right. No,
Evan,
you're right. Yeah.
7 points, 4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 55% on 3 attempts per game. 18 minutes per game this past couple of weeks. Like, yeah,
those numbers are way too close to Bruce Brown's for anyone's liking. Those are way too similar for a guy who's supposed to be in the prime of his career and a contributor versus a 37-year-old who's played like 6 games all season.
What I want to ask you guys too is, like, ever since Bruce Brown arrived to the team, do you think there was a point where he ever actually bought into the team's system, his role, or he just kind of had like, you know what, I'm getting out of here at the end of the season?
I think he was expected to be gone at the deadline.
Yeah.
I think that's all I can say at this point.
Yeah. Like, I don't think there was a point to your question, Kyle, but I also, like, to his, I guess in fairness to him, I don't blame him either for not having bought into this team or the system or anything. Like, again, you think you're probably out of the door come trade deadline, and then you're not, and you have to completely reevaluate your situation. But then you also know at this offseason, you're probably still out the door. So there's no sense of security. Like, he made that joke where when he first got here, like, he's probably not going to sign a lease for an apartment. And I think he just knows that, like, whether it was the trade deadline, whether it's the offseason, there's no point in him staying here, and he probably doesn't want to. He wants to go back to a contender. Like, he didn't sign up for a rebuild necessarily. So I think with him, like, I don't blame him for not having bought into the system.
Yeah, exactly. You can't blame him, right? I mean, I think he also made the comments about, like, he'd be a great fit under Tom Thibodeau, and it was like unprompted in like a press conference. So it is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we can't really fully evaluate the Pascal Siakam trade either until that trade happens, which I think will make that trade look a bit better. I'm not sure. Maybe this is a question for you guys. Do you think this lackluster end of the season play for him has affected his trade value, or do you think teams will understand, like, hey, this is exactly what we all laid out? He's better on a contender, and there's just no talent around him.
I think, like, just like, it's hard to say too, because like the teams are gonna be like, all right, he's a good fit for a contending team, but like, I don't want to put him on him too and say it's a maturity thing as well too. Like, I don't think it has, honestly. If I could just give you a clear cut answer, I don't think it will. If I'm a contender, I know what he's capable of, seeing him on contending teams, so I would pick him up. I don't think, like, again, the Raptors are losing, like, he has nothing to gain from going out of his mind, you know, and possibly risking an injury. So for me, at least, I don't think this affected his trade value at all.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite end. I will say that, like, teams who are going to go after him we're still going to be interested in him because they know the talented player he has. But if you're talking about value and asset management, like, the Raptors have lost leverage in this situation. He's a guy who probably knows he doesn't fit in this system and doesn't want to be here, and that plays into it. It's a player-driven, like, a league and organization now. And then other teams are gonna, like, obviously want to undercut that value. Why would you want to pay, like, market value for something when you can get it for cheaper when you see these numbers are diminished? If I'm at the negotiating table trying to get Bruce Brown from the Raptors, I'm gonna be like, hey, look at this last season. He hasn't played great. His club option is this much money. He hasn't lived up to that value. Why would I want to pay you a high first-round pick or whatever? I'm going to try to undercut the Raptors if I'm trading with them now because of what the situation has looked like, quite honestly. So I think, like, if I'm going after Bruce Brown, seeing how he's played probably doesn't make me stay away from him and be like, I don't want to trade for him anymore. But in terms of what you're going to get in return, I think that value has changed based on the way he's played and the way he's looked with this team, and given the circumstances of the situation in terms of, like, his club option and what that means.
I think you could see something at the draft with him. Like, I feel like I have a sneaking suspicion that the Raptors are going to be up to something at the draft, whether that's trading Bruce Brown or flipping a pick to move up or trading down or whatever it may be. It's obviously going to depend if they get a top 6 pick, but I feel like they're in one of the positions to really navigate the draft, which is something that the Raptors really don't do when it comes to, like, making trades on draft day. But I feel like this year in particular, in, like, a transition off season, I feel like they could be doing something.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, like, we talked about this before, like, the Masai Ujiri tenure hasn't really had to go through a rebuilding phase to this degree, and they haven't had to really figure things out and be movers and aggressive buyers at the draft. So it's going to be interesting to see what their approach is, what they're looking to do, because like, these are things that are new all around. You don't know what their tendencies are. You don't know if they're aggressive in the draft. You don't know if they're really risky in the draft. None of their draft decisions in the past have had to really, like, been franchise altering moves. Some of them have ended out being franchise changers, again, like an OG Anunoby, like a Pascal Siakam and whatnot, but, like, they haven't had to be those things. Those are things that just happen and they're great. But right now the Raptors are in a situation where, like, they have to make positive moves here that are, like, franchise changing or trajectory changing. It's going to be interesting to see what they do because we have no reference point on any of that.
I think that's a good way to end it. I mean, we're all looking towards the future, right? You can already see where our minds are at. Which there's still 9 games left, so we'll see.
I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Like, we're looking towards the future. Bruce Brown, look towards your future in a different team. I'm just putting it out there. Jalen McDaniels, join him while you're at it. It'll make me a lot happier as a Raptors fan. But I think that covers it pretty much. I added some more Jalen McDaniels hate just to spite Kyle. But I think we're going to move it on to betting ahead. Thank you, everyone.
All right, now it's time for betting ahead, powered by FanDuel. So let's take a look at this week's schedule. So this week, the Raptors have a very tough schedule ahead of them. They have the 76ers, the Lakers, the Timberwolves, the Bucks, and the Wizards. For the Raptors money line, I would go with them beating the Wizards. With the amount of injuries the Raptors are currently dealing with and uncertainty that RJ and Quickly could return to the lineup, I wouldn't bet again. I bet a win for them against any of these playoff teams. And for my same game parlay, since it's hard to say exactly with the roster moving around and injuries, every time I do one of these parlays, the players just don't play that game. But hopefully this goes through against the Lakers. So first, I'll throw on a Gary Trent Jr. 15 plus points and 2+ threes. He has hit this scoring prop since the 1st of March, and with the injuries, he continues to be one of the main scoring options for this team. He also has knocked down at least 2 3-pointers at least 8 times in his last 11 games. So this should be a safe bet unless he sells me. Next, I'll go back to our boy Grady Dick and throw him on there for 1+3. He's been stepping up and hitting at least 1 a game, so this should be a safe bet. Also, finally, with Kelly Olynyk, I'll take him for 10+ points. He's been good for double-digit scoring in his last 9 of 10 games. And for his rebounding, I would take his alt under 7.5 rebounds. I believe he'll have a very hard time with guys like Anthony Davis and such. So if I were to bet 6+ rebounds, I don't think he'll get around there, but I don't think he'll get into double-digit rebounding, especially with someone like Anthony Davis if AD is playing that game. And there you have it. That was Betting Ahead, powered by FanDuel.
All right, now that does it for us. We want to thank anyone who followed along, and we hope you're caught up on all things in Raptors land. Now, if you like this and want more content for Raptors Republic, check out our description or go to raptorsrepublic.com for more details. And with that being said, like always, please like, share, subscribe, but even more, like I continue to say, please leave us some feedback. I know the season's coming to an end, but if you have ideas for next season, things you want to see, maybe things that you want us to change and change with the conversation. Again, now it's going to be 3 of us moving forward. It's going to be a different dynamic, and I think it's for the better. So let us know what you think and what you want to see coming forward. And hopefully you enjoyed what we had to say. With that being said, I am Zulfi Sheikh, joined by Kyle Ramnarine and Coty Wiles on the Raptors Republic Network. We'll see you in a week when we run it back.